Okay, so you're thinking about how to protect those retirement dollars,
Yeah, sure.
and you're looking for ways to kind of make sure that your future is a little bit more secure.
Right.
So today we are diving into a topic that we get asked about all the time, and it's gold IRAs.
Yeah.
We've got a great guide here that we are going to be referencing, and it's from Start Gold IRA. It's by this guy, Doug Young, and basically it lays out everything you need to know.
It really does kind of cover the whole landscape of gold IRAs, from setting one up to the types, all the different flavors of gold IRAs and considerations.
Yeah, there are a lot of things to consider, and that's what we want to do today is just kind of make this a little bit less mysterious so that you listening can really wrap your head around what exactly a gold IRA is, how you actually go about setting one up, the potential benefits, but also the things you need to be wary of, so that at the end of this deep dive, you can feel empowered to make smart decisions about your financial future.
Yeah, and just for context on the source, Doug Young has over 20 years of experience in financial investing in precious metals. And the website Start Gold IRA, it's really dedicated to providing news and insights and even comparisons of different gold IRA companies. So I think the idea is that he has a lot of perspective in this area.
Yeah, so it's a great resource for anyone who's even thinking about possibly dipping their toes into these waters, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start by really breaking down the basics. What is a gold IRA? It sounds kind of obvious, right? An IRA with gold. But I'm guessing there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there is a little more to it than that. At its most basic, it is an individual retirement account, just like a traditional or Roth IRA that a lot of folks out there listening probably have. The difference is, instead of holding paper assets like stocks or bonds, this one holds physical precious metals.
Okay.
So we're talking gold, obviously.
Off the gold part.
But also silver, platinum, and palladium. So, I think the thing to keep in mind is that this isn't just about collecting shiny coins. It's really about a potential way of adding a layer of security to your financial future.
Okay, so let's talk about the security, because I think that's a really important point. Why would someone want to hold physical gold instead of, let's say, like a really well-balanced mutual fund?
Well, I think gold has this long, long history as a store of value.
Right.
For thousands of years, people have considered it to be, a valuable asset and something that holds its worth. It's often considered like a shield against inflation and economic uncertainty.
It's almost like that time-tested thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because, when the money in your pocket, like what economists call fiat currencies, the stuff we use every day, when those start to lose their buying power, or if the stock market gets really rocky, gold can actually often hold its value or even increase in value. So that means it has the potential to add this layer of stability to your overall investment mix. So for instance, during high inflation periods in the past, gold has sometimes increased in value while other assets have gone down.
Right.
So, it's this idea that it's a hedge.
It's kind of doing its own thing almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Independent of the rest of the economy.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are some interesting points. What are some other advantages? What are those aha moments that would really make someone seriously consider a gold IRA?
Well, the guide lays out a few really key advantages. The first one is diversification.
Okay.
So the idea here is that, most financial advisors, they preach the importance of diversification.
Absolutely. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, exactly. And so holding physical assets like these precious metals could be a way to spread your risk. Because as we were just talking about, gold often doesn't move in the same way as stocks and bonds. So it has this potential to act as a buffer in your portfolio. So if, let's say, your stock holdings take a downturn, gold might stay steady or even go up.
It's almost like an insurance policy.
Yeah, it's an insurance policy for your portfolio. Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
The second key advantage, and this is a big one, is that gold is often seen as a hedge against inflation.
Okay.
So we've all seen prices go up and up over the last couple of years.
For sure.
And, as things get more expensive and the dollar buys less, that's what inflation is. Historically, gold has tended to rise in value during those periods of inflation. So it can potentially help you maintain the real value of your retirement savings so you can still buy roughly the same amount of stuff in the future, even if prices keep going up.
Yeah, so that purchasing power.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, what about the tax benefits? That's one of the big things that people always talk about with the retirement accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like traditional and Roth IRAs, gold IRAs come with tax advantages. With a traditional Gold IRA, the money that you contribute might be tax deductible. It grows tax deferred, meaning you don't pay taxes on those gains until retirement, and then you only pay taxes when you withdraw the money.
Right.
So this could be appealing if you think you'll be in a lower tax bracket in retirement than you are now.
Gotcha. What about the Roth version of a Gold IRA?
The Roth Gold IRA is basically the opposite. You pay taxes on the money you contribute now, so there's no immediate tax break. But the advantage is that the investments grow tax-free, and when you withdraw them in retirement, you don't have to pay taxes on those either.
Okay.
So this can be a good choice if you think you'll be in a higher tax bracket when you retire.
Gotcha. Okay, so the guide also mentions a SEP Gold IRA. What's that?
The SEP stands for Simplified Employee Pension. And it's basically designed for self-employed folks or small business owners. So if you're listening and you fall into that category.
Right.
The advantage of a SEP Gold IRA is it allows for much higher contribution limits than traditional or Roth IRAs. For example, the guide mentions John, who is a consultant.
Okay.
And he could potentially invest a much larger portion of his earnings into gold using a SEP Gold IRA and benefit from the tax-deferred growth and diversification.
Gotcha.
So it really depends on whether you're employed or self-employed and what your tax situation is.
Yeah. And what you anticipate that tax situation being like in retirement, too.
Exactly. And that's a good point. The guide says you should carefully weigh the pros and cons of each type based on your own financial goals and your tax picture. And they even recommend talking to a financial advisor to figure out what makes the most sense for you.
Okay, so let's say someone decides that a Gold IRA might be right for them. How do they go about setting one up? Is it as simple as just like opening an investment account online?
Well, it's a little bit more involved, but the guide lays out a really clear process. So the first thing, as we just discussed, you have to decide what type of Gold IRA is right for you, traditional, Roth, or SEP. And then step 2 is to select a trustworthy Gold IRA company.
Okay, and that sounds pretty important. Why is choosing the right company so crucial?
Yeah, it's super important because they're going to be your partner in this whole process. They help you set up the account. They manage the transfer or rollover of funds from your existing retirement accounts. And they're the ones that you'll be buying the physical precious metals from. So they are your main point of contact. And they work with the custodian on your behalf.
Okay.
So, it's important to have a good relationship with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do you go about finding a reputable company? There's got to be tons of them out there.
Yeah, there are a lot. The guide has some good advice on this. The first is to research the company's history. How long have they been in business? You want to look for well-established companies, ones that have a really solid track record. And then there are tons of online reviews. So you can check out sites like the Better Business Bureau.
BBB.
Yeah, the BBB, the Business Consumer Alliance, the BCA, and TrustLink. You can get an idea of the company's reputation and how satisfied their customers have been. And then, word of mouth is always good. Talk to your friends, family, colleagues, if anyone has invested in precious metals. See if they have any recommendations.
Yeah. Personal recommendations are always the best, right?
They are. And then when you are looking at companies, you also want to consider the costs involved because it's not free to have a Gold IRA.
Right. I imagine there's more fees than your typical IRA.
Yeah, and they'll charge what's called a premium over the spot price of the precious metals. And the guide really stresses the importance of getting a detailed breakdown of all the costs involved. So premiums, fees for shipping, insurance. You want to make sure that you're not hit with any hidden fees later down the line.
Yeah, you want to know what you're getting into up front.
Exactly. And then you also want to ask about their buyback policy.
Go ahead.
So a strong buyback policy means that when you're ready to sell, the company will buy your metals back from you at a fair price. And that basically gives you more liquidity.
That makes sense. And the guide also provides a few suggestions: Augusta, Precious Metals, Gold Co., and American Hartford Gold. It even highlights that Augusta has 0 BBB and BCA complaints ever.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And I think that's something that speaks to the importance of doing your research. The guide can make recommendations, but ultimately you're the one making the decisions.
For sure. Okay, so step 3 is choosing a custodian. What does a custodian do, and are they separate from the Gold IRA company?
Yeah, the custodian is a completely separate entity, and their job is to handle all the administrative and regulatory stuff for your IRA.
Okay.
So they make sure everything complies with IRS rules, and that includes managing the storage of your precious metals. They're also responsible for all the paperwork and reporting to the IRS.
So I can't just store the gold like in a safe in my house or in a safe deposit box or
Oh,
something.
that's a big no-no.
Okay.
The guide's really clear on that. Storing the metals yourself breaks IRS regulations.
And they're probably not too happy about that, right?
They're not happy about that now.
Okay.
And, you could face penalties and taxes. The IRS requires the precious metals in a gold IRA to be held in an approved and secure depository.
Okay.
And the custodian handles that for you.
So in terms of choosing a custodian, does the Gold IRA Company typically help with that?
Yeah, usually they have relationships with custodians who specialize in gold IRAs, and they will recommend one. You don't have to go with their pick, but it often makes sense because the company and the custodian work together pretty closely to manage your account.
Okay. So step 4 is funding the account. What are the different ways that you can get money into a Gold IRA?
The most common ways are either new contributions, you could contribute money directly to it, or you can transfer or roll over funds from existing retirement accounts, so like a 401k or traditional IRA.
Okay.
And the guide talks about the difference between a direct transfer and an indirect rollover.
Okay.
So a direct transfer is the simplest. The funds move directly from your old account to your new Gold IRA. You never touch the money.
Okay.
So there's minimal paperwork and no immediate tax implications.
Gotcha. And the indirect rollover.
So the indirect rollover is when they send you the money from your retirement account, and then you have to deposit those funds into the Gold IRA within 60 days.
Okay.
And if you miss that 60-day deadline, the IRS considers it a distribution,
Ah.
and you could face taxes and penalties.
Okay.
Yeah. So the guide recommends sticking with the direct transfer whenever possible.
That makes sense. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, yeah. But in either case, you'll need to contact the company that holds your existing retirement account. And the Gold IRA company will usually help you with the forms and paperwork to make that happen.
Okay. So step 5 is actually choosing and purchasing the metals.
Right.
What kinds of metals are eligible for a Gold IRA?
So the IRS has very specific rules about the types and the purity of the metals that can be held in a Gold IRA.
Okay.
And that includes gold, silver, platinum, and palladium.
Gotcha. So those are the main 4.
Those are the 4. And your Gold IRA company will provide you with a list of metals that meet the IRS's standards. And gold, for example, typically has to be at least 99.5% pure.
Wow. Okay.
And they'll help you select and purchase these approved metals, so you don't have to go out and find them yourself.
That's good. Step 6 is storing the metals. And we've already touched on this a little bit, but it's worth reiterating. You have to store them in an approved depository. You cannot keep them at home.
Absolutely not. No shoeboxes full of gold.
That's not going to fly.
It's not going to fly.
The IRS is going to come knocking.
They're going to be unhappy with you.
Yeah.
So they have to be stored in an IRS-approved depository. And these are specialized facilities that offer really high levels of security.
Right.
They're insured, so you don't have to worry about, anything happening to them. And they make sure that everything's in compliance with IRS regulations.
Right.
So your custodian will actually give you a list of approved depositories and handle all the arrangements for you.
Okay.
And it's worth noting there are different types of storage options within these depositories, so you might want to ask about those as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a process. There's a few steps involved.
Yeah.
But it sounds like with a good company and custodian by your side, it's manageable.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things that people should be wary of, right? We've been talking about the good stuff, but what are the potential risks and considerations before jumping into a Gold IRA?
Yeah, it's important to have a balanced perspective, right? Gold can be valuable, but like any investment, its price can fluctuate. And there's no guarantee that it will go up in value. Sometimes it goes down. And the other thing to consider is that Gold IRAs typically have higher fees than traditional IRAs because of the storage costs, the insurance, and the custodian fees.
Right.
So the guide, again, really stresses doing your homework, doing your research, talking to a financial advisor to make sure that it fits your goals.
Yeah, and I imagine compliance with all the IRS rules is extremely important, right?
Yeah.
If you want those tax advantages, you got to play by the rules.
You got to play by the rules. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The guide can't stress that enough.
Right.
You have to follow all the IRS rules, the storage requirements, making sure the metals are the right purity, all of that stuff. Because if you don't, you could lose those tax advantages.
Yeah. That would be a shame after going through all this trouble.
Exactly.
Okay, so what are some best practices for managing a Gold IRA once you have it set up? It's not something you just put money into and forget about.
Right. Right. You can't just ignore it. So the guide offers some really practical tips. One of them is to diversify your metals portfolio. So don't just focus solely on gold. Think about adding silver, platinum, and palladium.
Okay.
Each of those has its own market dynamics and could potentially help your portfolio. For example, silver has a lot of industrial uses.
Right.
So spreading your investment across different metals might lead to greater stability and growth.
That makes sense.
Hmm.
And what else should people be doing?
Regularly monitoring your investments is important. Keep an eye on how those metals are performing.
Okay.
Stay up to date on market trends that could influence their value. And the guide suggests having regular check-ins with your Gold IRA company to talk about your strategy and your
It's
goals.
kind of like any investment, right? You want to pay attention.
Exactly. And you're not in this alone. Your Gold IRA company can help you with all of this.
Great.
And then the final tip is rebalancing your portfolio. So
Yeah.
over time, the value of the different metals will change, and that can affect your asset allocation. So you might want to sell a little bit of something that's gone up in value to buy more of something that hasn't.
Gotcha. So that you stay balanced.
Exactly. So that you maintain that balance and keep your portfolio aligned with your long-term financial plan.
Gotcha. Okay. And the guide also includes some frequently asked questions. What are some of the questions that stood out to you?
Yeah, one of the common ones is the minimum investment required.
Okay.
And that varies a lot by company. Some companies might have minimums as low as $5,000 or $10,000.
Right.
Others might have minimums of $50,000 or even $100,000.
Wow. Okay.
So you have to shop around.
Yeah.
And then another question that comes up all the time is about home storage, which again, absolutely not.
Well, don't do it.
It's against the rules. The IRS will not be pleased with you.
Right. And there's a disclosure at the end of the guide mentioning that they may receive compensation for recommending certain precious metals companies and that the content may not be neutral.
Right. Well, it's always smart to consider the source of your financial information and do your own research.
Absolutely. Got to be an informed consumer.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's recap our deep dive into Gold IRAs. It's a retirement account that holds physical precious metals.
Huh.
Gold, silver, platinum, and palladium.
Right.
They can offer some advantages like diversification.
Right.
It can help you hedge against inflation. And there are tax advantages similar to traditional and Roth IRAs.
Right.
To set one up, you need to choose a Gold IRA company, you need a custodian, you fund your account, you select the metals you want, you purchase them, and you store them in an approved depository. And it's important to be aware of those risks, that the fees might be a little higher than a traditional IRA, and that you have to follow the rules, especially about storage.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that you're managing it. So you're diversifying your metals, you're keeping track of your investments, and you're rebalancing that portfolio over time.
Right. So as a final thought, I'll leave you with this. Considering how gold has historically performed during times of economic uncertainty, how could strategically incorporating some precious metals into your retirement plan impact the overall resilience and security of your financial future? Certainly something to think about.
It is.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive on Gold IRAs, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.